A racist cop ordered the black elder from his park bench, his voice laced with scorn. He saw only an old man, an easy target. What that cop didn't see, the mayor's chief of staff, the elder's devoted protege, was watching the entire outrage from his car, phone already pressed to his ear, calling the police chief. That officer's shift was about to end very badly. Friends, viewers, and champions of everyday justice, welcome. The story you are about to immerse yourselves in today unfolds on a seemingly ordinary park bench in a city like so many others, yet it strikes at the very heart of how we value our elders and how power can be so callously misused. This narrative is more than an account of an old man wronged. It is a profound look at the invisible threads of influence that weave through our communities and the surprising ways in which respect, long earned, can summon an unexpected and mighty defense. If this is your first encounter with our channel, we would be genuinely grateful if you'd share where you're joining us from in the comments below. It's a joy to connect with our diverse worldwide audience. And if you find value in stories that challenge assumptions, celebrate resilience, and reaffirm the principle that dignity knows no age, please consider subscribing and activating that notification bell. We are dedicated to bringing forth voices that resonate with truth and narratives that inspire meaningful reflection. Your presence here is deeply appreciated. Thank you for being with us. Now, let us turn to the quiet morning that became anything but for Mr. Josiah Bellweather. The city of Oakhaven, a sprawling metropolis that hummed with the ceaseless energy of commerce and ambition, nevertheless held pockets of tranquility where its residents could momentarily escape the urban clamor. None was more beloved nor more central to the city's identity than Viridian Park. More than just a green lung, Viridian Park was a sprawling tapestry of Oakhaven's history and its aspirations. Its ancient, gnarled oak trees, their branches forming majestic, leafy canopies, had witnessed generations come and go, their silent presence a testament to the city's endurance. Manicured lawns swept down to a serene man-made lake, where swans glided with aristocratic grace, and meticulously cultivated rose gardens, a legacy of a philanthropic era, perfumed the air with their delicate fragrance from late spring until the first biting frost of autumn. Winding asphalt paths, worn smooth by countless footsteps, bicycle tires and stroller wheels, crisscrossed the park, inviting exploration. Children's laughter, a bright, effervescent sound, frequently cascaded from the sprawling modern playground near the old Victorian bandstand, while determined joggers and power walkers traced their circuits with focused intensity. Viridian Park was Oakhaven's communal backyard, its open-air living room, a democratic haven ostensibly welcoming to every citizen, regardless of their station in life, who sought solace, recreation, or simply a moment of quiet contemplation under its benevolent green gaze. And for Mr. Josiah Ephraim Bellweather, Viridian Park, and more specifically, one particular weathered but sturdy wooden bench, nestled beneath the expansive shade of a magnificent century-old southern magnolia tree near the entrance to the formal rose garden, was not merely a pleasant diversion. It was an integral, almost sacred component of his daily existence. It was a cornerstone of his well-ordered life, a fixed point of ritual and reflection in his 81st year. Mr. Bellweather was a man whose very presence seemed to exude a quiet, unshakable dignity. He was a widower of nearly a quarter century, his beloved wife, Clara, having been taken from him by a swift illness that had left a void in his life. That time had softened but never fully erased. He was a retired master carpenter, a craftsman of the old school, whose skilled hands, though now gnarled and stiffened by the relentless advance of arthritis, had once coaxed beauty and enduring strength from raw timber shaping and erecting some of Oakhaven's most admired heritage buildings. His face, a rich, dark brown, was a compelling landscape of a life fully lived, etched with a network of fine lines that spoke of laughter and sorrow, of hard work under the sun, and of countless hours spent in thoughtful observation. His eyes, though perhaps not as sharp as they once were, remained remarkably clear, intelligent, and held a spark of unwavering kindness that could warm even the most jaded heart. His attire, though never ostentatious, was always impeccably neat. A crisply ironed cotton shirt, comfortable but well-pressed trousers, and, invariably, a classic soft-brimmed fedora, which he would tip with an old-world courtesy to acquaintances encountered on his daily constitutional. Every single morning, with a constancy that rivaled the rising of the sun itself, for the past 23 years, a ritual begun in the lonely days following Clara's passing, a way to find structure and solace in a world suddenly tilted off its axis. Mr. Bellweather adhered to an unwavering routine. He would awaken before the city's first stirrings, well before the dawn chorus of traffic and commerce began its daily crescendo. In the quiet solitude of his small, immaculately kept bungalow on Sycamore Street, a testament to his lifelong neatness and respect for order, he would meticulously prepare a thermos of strong black coffee, sweetened with just a hint of molasses, precisely the way Clara had taught him, a small daily homage to her memory. He would then retrieve the Oakhaven Daily Herald from his dew-dampened porch, tuck it under his arm, and, with his sturdy, familiar walking stick in hand, a gift from his late son, carved from a piece of oak he himself had salvaged, he would embark on the 6-block walk to Viridian Park. He timed his arrival perfectly, reaching his favored bench just as the first golden rays of the sun began to pierce the city skyline, painting the eastern clouds with hues of apricot and rose, and casting long, cool, analytical shadows across the still sleeping lawns. He would settle onto Clara's bench, as he privately, tenderly called it, for it was here, under this very magnolia, that they had shared countless quiet moments in their golden years, watching the world go by, their hands often clasped in comfortable silence. He would pour the steaming coffee into its well-worn thermos cup, its aroma a familiar comfort, and then, with a soft sigh of contentment, he would unfurl his newspaper and lose himself in the printed words, the rustling of the pages a gentle counterpoint to the distant sounds of the awakening city and the closer, more intimate symphony of birdsong from the branches overhead. He wasn't merely perusing the headlines, he was engaging in a silent dialogue with his city, absorbing its triumphs and its tribulations, connecting with its pulse, all while enveloped in the comforting embrace of his cherished memories and the park's serene ambiance. He was a fixture, an elder statesman of the Dawn Patrol, as much a part of Viridian Park's early morning tableau as the Grand Magnolia itself, or the stoic bronze statue of General Oakhaven that stood sentinel nearby. The regulars of Viridian Park, the dedicated joggers, the early bird dog walkers, the Tai Chi practitioners who gathered on the great lawn, all knew Mr. Bellweather, if not by formal introduction, then certainly by his steadfast, quiet presence. They would offer a respectful nod, a murmured "Good morning, sir," or a friendly wave as they passed his bench. He was the gentleman under the magnolia, a symbol of enduring constancy, a reassuring figure whose very presence seemed to lend an air of peaceful gravitas to the park's morning proceedings. What very few of these casual acquaintances knew, and what certainly no uniformed officer on a routine patrol could possibly guess from his unassuming demeanor, was the profound depth of respect and quiet influence Mr. Josiah Bellweather commanded in circles of power, far removed from the tranquil solitude of his daily park ritual. Decades earlier, in a tougher, less forgiving Oakhaven neighborhood, he had recognized a spark of fierce intelligence and raw potential in a troubled, fatherless boy named Ethan Reed. Mr. Bellweather, already a respected figure in his community for his integrity and wisdom, had taken young Ethan under his wing, becoming not just a mentor, but a surrogate father, a guiding moral compass. He had taught Ethan the value of hard work, the importance of education, the tenets of honor, and the quiet power of unshakable integrity. He had steered him away from the pitfalls of the streets, encouraged his academic pursuits, and celebrated his every small victory as if it were his own. That same Ethan Reed, a testament to Mr. Bellweather's unwavering belief and patient guidance, was now the Honorable Ethan Carmichael Reed, the exceptionally astute, deeply respected, and fiercely loyal Chief of Staff to Oakhaven's dynamic and widely admired mayor, the Honorable Eleanor Vance. Their bond, forged in the crucible of shared adversity and cemented by decades of mutual respect and affection, was profound, unbreakable, and largely shielded from the glare of public scrutiny. For Ethan Reed, a man who navigated the complex, often treacherous corridors of city power with skill and aplomb, Mr. Josiah Bellweather remained his North Star, the quiet voice of conscience he turned to for counsel, the living embodiment of the principles he strove to uphold in his demanding public life. Mr. Bellweather was, quite simply, family. Into this meticulously ordered and deeply meaningful tapestry of Mr. Bellweather's morning existence, a jarringly dissonant and utterly unwelcome thread was about to be violently interwoven. Officer Kevin Kev Lasko, badge number 714, was barely 6 months out of the Oakhaven Police Academy. In his early 20s, he possessed the unfortunate combination of limited life experience, an inflated sense of his own importance derived from the sudden acquisition of a badge and a gun, and a rigid, almost fanatical adherence to the letter of minor regulations, often at the expense of common sense or basic human decency. Lasko was ambitious, driven by a desire to make a name for himself, to be seen as a real cop, not just a park patroller. Unfortunately, this ambition was coupled with a significant chip on his shoulder regarding what he perceived as a pervasive lack of proper respect for the uniform, particularly from individuals he subconsciously profiled based on age, race, or perceived socioeconomic status. He had a particular, though unarticulated, disdain for what he considered idleness or loitering, especially by those who didn't fit his narrow, preconceived notion of a productive citizen. He was on the early morning patrol rotation in Viridian Park that Tuesday, a duty assignment he found mind-numbingly tedious, and he was actively, if subconsciously, scanning his environment for an opportunity to assert his authority, to enforce the law, to inject some excitement into his otherwise uneventful shift. He needed to feel like he was doing something significant. As Officer Lasko's gleaming black-and-white patrol cruiser nosed slowly along the park's perimeter service road, his bored gaze swept across the dew-laden lawns and deserted pathways. Then it locked onto the solitary figure of Mr. Josiah Bellweather, seated with his characteristic serene composure on the bench beneath the magnolia, his newspaper spread across his lap, a faint wisp of steam curling from the cup in his hand. To Officer Lasko's inexperienced, prejudiced, and authority-hungry eyes, this scene did not register as one of peaceful, elderly contemplation. Instead, through the distorting lens of his biases, he processed a different image. An old black man, possibly homeless, Mr. Bellweather's neat, if modest attire notwithstanding, occupying a public bench at an unusually early hour, potentially a vagrant or, at the very least, someone up to no good. It was, in Lasko's warped perception, a clear instance of loitering in direct contravention of Park Ordinance 7, Subsection B, a regulation primarily intended to discourage overnight encampments, but frequently misapplied by overzealous officers. This was his chance, an opportunity to clean up the park, to maintain order, to make his presence felt. A small, unpleasant smirk touched the corner of Lasko's lips. He pulled his cruiser to an abrupt, gravel-scattering halt on the asphalt path a few yards from the magnolia tree. The sharp, unceremonious slamming of his car door, an aggressive punctuation mark that brutally shattered the park's delicate morning tranquility. Mr. Bellweather, though his hearing had certainly diminished somewhat with the passage of 81 years, nonetheless registered the intrusive, jarring sound. He looked up from his perusal of the City Council's latest budget debates, a flicker of mild, questioning surprise in his calm eyes. He observed the uniformed officer striding towards him, his gait purposeful, almost confrontational, his hand resting perhaps unconsciously, perhaps deliberately, near the holstered firearm on his hip. Mr. Bellweather, a man who had witnessed the full spectrum of human behavior in his long life, felt a familiar, unwelcome premonition, a subtle tightening in his chest. "All right there, Grandpa," Officer Lasko began, his voice a forced, overly loud attempt at joviality that failed to mask the underlying current of condescension and challenge. He deliberately positioned himself directly in front of the bench, a solid, uniformed obstacle between Mr. Bellweather and the nascent sunlight that was beginning to filter through the magnolia's leaves. "Pretty early to be out enjoying the park, isn't it? What exactly are you up to out here all by your lonesome?" Mr. Bellweather, a man for whom ingrained courtesy was as natural as breathing, carefully, deliberately folded his newspaper and placed it beside him on the bench. "Good morning to you, officer," he replied, his voice calm and resonant, though perhaps a trifle raspy with the early morning air and the weight of his years. "I am simply enjoying my customary morning coffee and perusing the daily news, a ritual I have maintained for many years now." "Many years, you say?" Lasko's eyes, a pale, washed-out blue, narrowed with a show of exaggerated suspicion. "You got a permanent residence in the area, old-timer, or is this particular bench your designated spot?" The sneering implication was unmistakable, designed to demean and provoke. A faint, almost imperceptible flush of color rose on Mr. Bellweather's high, dignified cheekbones, but his voice, when he responded, remained impeccably even, betraying no hint of anger, only a profound, weary patience. "I reside at 112 Sycamore Street, officer, and have done so for the past 52 years. This bench, however, under this beautiful magnolia, is indeed where I prefer to greet the dawn and contemplate the day ahead." "Well, contemplation time is over," Lasko declared, puffing out his chest slightly, visibly relishing the sensation of wielding his newfound authority. "Park Regulations Section 7 clearly state no loitering. You can't just commandeer a public bench and set up shop here for the entire day, Pops. It's not allowed." Mr. Bellweather's eyebrows, still surprisingly dark against his silver-gray hair, arched in an expression of polite incredulity. "Loitering, officer? With all due respect, I am merely sitting quietly, reading my newspaper and enjoying a cup of coffee. I am disturbing no one, creating no nuisance. I fail to comprehend how my peaceful presence could possibly be construed as loitering or setting up shop. I intend to depart in an hour or so, as is my usual custom. I'm the one who makes the call on what's disturbing or loitering in my park, old man," Lasko snapped, his veneer of forced civility rapidly disintegrating in the face of Mr. Bellweather's calm, articulate, and entirely reasonable defense. Lasko was accustomed to immediate, unquestioning deference, especially from individuals he perceived as being in a subordinate or vulnerable position. This quiet, dignified resistance was infuriating. And I'm telling you, your presence here right now looks suspicious to me. Highly suspicious. I'm going to need to see some official photo identification. Now. Mr. Bellweather emitted a soft, almost inaudible sigh, a sound freighted with a lifetime's experience of such petty tyrannies, such casual, unthinking cruelties. "Officer," he said, his voice still quiet, but now tinged with an undeniable sadness, "I am, as you can plainly see, a man of advanced years. I am 81. I do not typically carry official photographic identification on my person when I embark upon my morning constitutional, to read my newspaper in a public park that is but a short stroll from my own home. I have violated no ordinance, broken no law. May I respectfully inquire if I am being formally detained, or if I am suspected of having committed some specific infraction?" "You're being uncooperative, that's what you're being." Lasko's voice escalated sharply in volume, his face beginning to flush an angry red. His outburst attracted the furtive, uneasy attention of a few early morning joggers and several dog walkers who had begun to populate the nearby paths. They slowed their pace, casting curious, apprehensive glances towards the unfolding confrontation, but none made any move to intervene. "And your attitude stinks. Now I am giving you a lawful order for the last time, old man. You need to pack up your paraphernalia and vacate this park immediately. This bench is for the enjoyment of the public, not for derelicts and vagrants to take over and make decent people uncomfortable." The word vagrant, spat out with such visceral, unadulterated contempt, landed on Mr. Josiah Bellweather with the force of a physical blow. His entire existence, his 81 years on this earth, had been a testament to hard work, unwavering integrity, quiet respectability, and selfless contribution to his community and his family. To be so crudely, so publicly, so unjustly dismissed and categorized by this callow, uniformed youth who represented the very institution sworn to protect citizens like him was a violation that cut deeper than any superficial wound. He rose slowly, majestically from the bench, his movements made stiff not just by age and arthritis, but by the immense weight of the insult he had just been forced to endure. His dignity, however, remained an almost palpable aura around him, an invisible shield that Lasko's vulgarities could not penetrate. He stood tall, his gaze direct and unwavering, fixed upon Officer Lasko's flushed, angry face. "Young man," he said, his voice quiet, yet filled with an ancient, sorrowful authority that seemed to momentarily hush the very rustling of the magnolia leaves above. "You are making a profound and regrettable mistake. You are mistaking age for weakness, and quietude for acquiescence. You would do well, for your own sake, to learn the critical difference before it is too late." Lasko, however, was far beyond the reach of reason or introspection, his fragile ego now fully committed to this petty, ugly battle of wills. "Are you threatening a police officer, old man?" he sneered, taking a menacing, deliberate step closer, his hand now ostentatiously resting on the butt of his holstered service weapon, a clear, unmistakable gesture of intimidation. "Because that, I can assure you, is not going to end well for you. Now I am ordering you, get out of this park. I don't want to see your face on this bench or anywhere near it again today. Am I making myself perfectly clear?" His voice was a low, guttural snarl. Mr. Bellweather did not flinch. He did not retreat. He simply held the furious young officer's gaze, his own eyes filled not with fear, but with a deep, almost paternal pity. He had faced down far more formidable and genuinely dangerous adversaries in his youth, during the terrifying, turbulent, yet ultimately triumphant days of the long struggle for civil rights in a deeply segregated South. He would not be cowed, nor would he be broken by this uniformed child playing at power. It was at this exact, exquisitely tense moment, as Lasko was drawing breath for what would undoubtedly have been another volley of abuse, or perhaps even a physical escalation, that the tableau was silently, dramatically altered. A sleek, understatedly expensive, dark charcoal gray sedan, the kind favored by high-level city officials, had glided to a silent, almost imperceptible stop on the park access road that ran alongside the rose garden, mere yards from the unfolding confrontation. The rear passenger door opened with a quiet, hydraulic sigh, and a man in a flawlessly tailored navy blue suit emerged with an air of unhurried, focused intensity. He was in his late 40s, his expression initially one of preoccupied thought, as if mentally reviewing the agenda for an upcoming important meeting. This was, of course, Ethan Carmichael Reed, the highly respected, exceptionally capable, and fiercely dedicated Chief of Staff to Oakhaven's popular and notably progressive Mayor Eleanor Vance. He was, as was his habit on days when the mayor had an early breakfast strategy session, cutting through Viridian Park on his way to City Hall, a route he favored for its momentary tranquility before the invariable onslaught of the political day. He had instantly, with a sickening lurch in his stomach, recognized the distinctive, beloved silhouette of Mr. Josiah Bellweather, his mentor, his surrogate father, his lifelong guide, standing in what was clearly a deeply distressing and highly charged confrontation with a uniformed Oakhaven police officer. Ethan's mind raced, his heart pounding with a sudden, cold dread. He knew Bellweather's inherently gentle, peaceable nature. For him to be involved in any sort of altercation, particularly with law enforcement, was almost unthinkable and deeply, profoundly alarming. Something was terribly wrong. Officer Lasko, his back still turned to the street and the silently arriving vehicle, was entirely oblivious to this pivotal new development. He was still leaning menacingly towards Mr. Bellweather, his face inches from the old man's, his voice a low, threatening growl. "I said, are we clear, old man, or do I have to physically assist you in vacating these premises?" He was demanding, the implication of force hanging heavy and ugly in the cool morning air. Before Mr. Bellweather could formulate a response, or before Lasko could make good on his implied threat, a new voice, calm, measured, yet resonant with an unmistakable, razor-sharp authority that sliced through the morning's tension like a surgeon's scalpel, interjected with quiet power. "Officer, perhaps you would be so kind as to explain to me in detail precisely what the problem seems to be here." Officer Kevin Lasko whirled around, startled by the unexpected intrusion, his face contorting into an expression of annoyance and indignation at having his authoritative moment interrupted. He saw Ethan Reed striding purposefully towards them, his expression composed but radiating an unreadable, yet undeniably powerful disapproval. Lasko, in his ignorance, did not immediately recognize the man as a high-ranking city official. His prejudiced mind registered only a well-dressed, confident black man who was, in his view, impertinently interfering in official police business. "This is an official police matter, sir, and it doesn't concern you," Lasko snapped, automatically reverting to his default mode of aggressive, territorial defensiveness. "This individual," he gestured contemptuously towards Mr. Bellweather, "is loitering in a restricted area of the park and is refusing to comply with a lawful order to disperse." Ethan Reed's piercing gaze flickered for the briefest of nanoseconds to Mr. Bellweather, a silent look of profound concern, reassurance, and unspoken apology passing between them, a communication honed by decades of deep understanding. Then his eyes, now chips of glacial ice, returned to fix squarely on Officer Lasko. "Loitering officer?" Ethan repeated, his voice dangerously, almost unnaturally, soft. "This gentleman whom you so casually dismiss is Mr. Josiah Bellweather. He has been sitting on this very bench under this very magnolia tree, enjoying his morning coffee and reading his newspaper at this precise hour, with unwavering consistency, for more than 2 decades. He is a revered elder of this Oakhaven community, officer, a man of unimpeachable integrity and quiet distinction. Perhaps you could articulate for my benefit the specific lawful order he is supposedly violating by peacefully existing, as is his right, in a public park that his taxes help to maintain." Lasko stared, momentarily dumbstruck, nonplussed by the articulate, almost forensic nature of the challenge, and by the sheer, unshakable confidence of the man delivering it. He fumbled for a response. He was being uncooperative, sir. He refused to provide identification when I requested it." "And was Mr. Bellweather suspected of having committed a specific criminal offense, Officer Lasko, an offense that would legally necessitate your demand for official identification under state law or city ordinance?" Ethan pressed, his voice still deceptively quiet, but now imbued with an icy, surgical precision that brooked no evasion. "Or was this perhaps an unfortunate instance of your making an unwarranted assumption of guilt based on—" "What precisely, officer? Mr. Bellweather's age, his race, his audacity in choosing to enjoy a public amenity in a manner that has been his peaceful custom for over 20 years. Each question was a carefully aimed dart, finding its mark in Lasko's crumbling composure. Lasko began to bluster, his face now a mottled patchwork of red and white. "Look, I don't have to stand here and explain my actions to you. Who in the Sam Hill do you think you are anyway, buddy?" Ethan Reed, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of infinite patience tried, reached slowly, almost languidly, into the inner breast pocket of his impeccably tailored suit. He withdrew a slim black leather wallet. He did not flash it aggressively. Instead, he opened it with a deliberate, almost solemn movement, revealing not a driver's license or a credit card, but a gleaming gold-embossed shield, the official insignia of the office of the mayor of Oakhaven, identifying him unequivocally as a senior official of the city government. "My name, Officer Lasko," Ethan stated, his voice now devoid of any trace of its earlier softness, resonating instead with the full, unassailable weight of his official capacity, "is Ethan Carmichael Reed. I am the Chief of Staff to Her Honor, Mayor Eleanor Vance, and Mr. Josiah Bellweather, the vagrant, the derelict, whom you were, by your own admission, about to physically remove from this public park, happens to be my lifelong mentor, my most trusted confidant, my surrogate father since I was a boy of 10, and, I assure you, one of Oakhaven's most profoundly cherished and respected citizens. Officer Lasko, I believe you have indeed made a mistake of truly monumental proportions. And now, officer, you are going to explain yourself, in meticulous detail, first to me, and then, I strongly suspect, to your immediate commanding officer, then to Chief of Police Marcus Reynolds, and then, quite possibly, directly to Mayor Vance herself. Do I make myself perfectly clear?" The transformation that washed over Officer Kevin Lasko's face was instantaneous and devastating. His aggressive swagger, his indignant bluster, his sneering contempt, all of it evaporated as if consumed by an invisible fire, leaving behind only a mask of chalky, horrified disbelief. The gleaming gold shield in Ethan Reed's steady hand seemed to pulse with an almost blinding light, searing its image onto Lasko's retinas. Chief of Staff to the Mayor, lifelong mentor, surrogate father, the words delivered with such calm, irrefutable authority echoed in the sudden ringing silence of Lasko's mind, each syllable a death knell for his nascent career, each phrase a testament to the colossal, catastrophic misjudgment he had just perpetrated. He had not merely harassed an anonymous old man. He had, in his breathtaking arrogance and willful blindness, grievously insulted and threatened an individual deeply, personally, and powerfully connected to the very apex of Oak Haven's municipal power structure. His future in law enforcement, once a bright, beckoning horizon in his ambitious young mind, now looked like a rapidly closing door, if not a gaping abyss. He felt a cold, sickening wave of nausea wash over him. Mr. Josiah Bellweather, who had remained a figure of stoic, dignified silence throughout Ethan's powerful intervention, observed Officer Lasko's dramatic and precipitous unraveling with a profound, almost sorrowful understanding. There was no discernible triumph in his ancient eyes, no hint of vindictive satisfaction, only a deep, weary recognition of a depressingly familiar pattern, the intoxicating allure of petty power, the casual dehumanization of the vulnerable, the inevitable, often painful, reckoning that follows when such power is abused without thought or consequence. The only significant variable this particular morning was the entirely unexpected, blessedly swift and powerfully effective arrival of a dedicated and exceptionally well-positioned protector. Ethan Reed, however, was the very personification of cold, controlled, righteous fury. His voice, though it never once rose above a measured, conversational level, was now laced with an arctic chill, a palpable undercurrent of diamond-hard resolve that made Officer Lasko visibly tremble, his earlier bravado now a distant, almost laughable memory. "Officer Lasko," Ethan began again, his gaze unwavering and penetrating, "you will immediately provide me with your full name and your badge number. You will then inform me of the name and rank of your direct on-duty supervisor. Following that, you will return to your patrol vehicle. You will remain there, and you will await further specific instructions from a superior officer. You will not, under any circumstances, speak to Mr. Bellweather again. You will not leave this immediate vicinity of Viridian Park until you are explicitly authorized to do so by either myself or by Chief Reynolds. Are my instructions, Officer Lasko, crystal clear?" Lasko, his face now ashen, his bravado utterly extinguished, could only manage a choked, barely audible, "Yes, yes, sir." He fumbled clumsily for his radio, his hands shaking so violently that he almost dropped it. He stammered his name, badge number, and the name of his duty sergeant into the microphone as if reciting his own eulogy, his voice cracking with a mixture of fear and dawning despair. Then, with a final, terrified glance at Ethan Reed, and a wider, almost pleading look towards Mr. Bellweather, who met his gaze with only quiet, unwavering dignity, he retreated, almost stumbled, back to his cruiser, slumping into the driver's seat like a puppet whose strings had been abruptly cut. The few onlookers who had remained, drawn by the escalating drama, were now murmuring excitedly amongst themselves, their faces a mixture of shock, dawning outrage at Lasko's earlier behavior, and a palpable sense of awe at the quiet, commanding authority they had just witnessed. They knew instinctively that they had been privy to something far more significant than a minor park squabble. Ethan Reed watched as Officer Lasko, pale and trembling, fumbled for his radio, the bravado utterly gone. Within minutes, summoned by Ethan's direct and icy call to Police Chief Marcus Reynolds, Lasko's bewildered sergeant arrived. The rookie officer was swiftly relieved of his duties on the spot, his badge and weapon requested, pending an immediate and thorough internal affairs investigation personally initiated by the Chief of Staff's office. The news of the incident and the identity of the man Lasko had accosted ignited a firestorm at City Hall. Mayor Vance, incensed, publicly vowed not only swift disciplinary action, but a full-scale review of Oakhaven PD's community interaction policies and rookie training protocols, particularly concerning bias and de-escalation. Mr. Bellweather, leaning on his cane, watched the young officer's departure with a sorrowful dignity. Ethan placed a supportive hand on his mentor's shoulder. He picked the wrong man and the wrong morning to abuse his authority, Ethan said quietly. This encounter in Viridian Park became a stark reminder throughout Oakhaven. Respect is not demanded by a uniform but earned by character, and every soul possesses a dignity that echoes louder than any shouted command. Sometimes the quietest voices have the most powerful friends. What are your thoughts on this story of unexpected justice? If narratives that uphold dignity and challenge prejudice resonate with you, we invite you to become part of our community. Please like this video, subscribe for more compelling stories, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss what's next. Share where you're watching from in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Thank you for joining us.